Dynasty.
All right, cue the theme music. Welcome back to another episode of Backyard Dynasty. You got your boy Fleet here.
And we are in the backyard of me, Scanny, a.k.a. Cam, a.k.a. I got that backwards, but you get the point.
Welcome back. Love it. We're missing Fancy today, but he's here in spirit, and hopefully for the next one we get all three of us back. But for tonight, Fleet and Scanny episode.
Yes. And for those of you that don't know, Fleet, I'm all backwards right now. Fancy works for the Giants, who are right now in the bottom of the 11th inning versus the D-backs. 4-3 coming at you live, 9:38 West Coast time. So let's go Giants. Let's win it. Big game versus the Snakes. Come on. Let's go, baby. Come on, Jock.
Probably got a pretty turned-up Cloud Club right now, Fancy does.
Oh, yeah.
So
they are off the Prosecco in the Cloud Club right now. No doubt about it.
Scanny Staple got the Prosecco going.
And you were just in the Cloud Club, not to get too off topic before we even start, but how was that experience for you?
No, why not? We just hang our hat on tangents here at Backyard Dynasty.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
Cloud Club, amazing. Shout out to Fancy for the experience.
Ultimate plug. Ultimate plug.
Absolutely. And it's just, Oracle Park is just a beautiful arena altogether. I mean, the contrast, I'm an A's fan, but the contrast from the Oakland Coliseum to Oracle, it's like night and day. I was literally just telling like a couple people, like, dude, the contrast between those two arenas is unbelievable, man. Like, you go to Oakland and it's like, you got possums and rats going up in the ceiling and by the vents. And then you go to Oracle and it's like high-end crab sandwiches and like
the
just
crazy crab sandwiches, baby.
Yeah. So
and not only that, but the suites too. I've seen the suites. So the Giant suites, they're really pretty, nice interior, leather couches, balcony that looks over the stadium, high-definition TVs, food and drinks all stocked in there. At the A's, at the Oakland Coliseum, the suites are like a concrete jungle. It's almost like a jail cell. It's pretty outdated. So let's get those boys to Vegas.
Okay. ASAP. All right. And enough with the slander. Speaking of slander, though, how about Sean Payton really just going in on Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos as he takes over to try to revitalize that team and what we think is a falling off Russell Wilson. You got the quote there for me?
I do have some quotes here for you. Yeah, he did. He definitely led into Nathaniel Hackett, former coach of those Broncos. One of the worst coaching jobs is the summary of what he said. He went in a little bit deeper, but we'll start there. And he's not wrong. He's really not wrong. And from his perspective, everyone in Broncos Nation or Broncos Country Let's Ride has given up on Russ. So I can see why he would make these comments. I see he's trying to get some of the pressure off Wilson's back. But when you come for a coach in the NFL, especially a first-year coach, there's definitely going to be some media fire, and that's where we're at right now.
Well, he set himself up. I mean, he didn't really put a filter on it all, and later he kind of walked back the comments and was like, it's against my better judgment. I probably shouldn't have been that critical because there's kind of, I guess, all of a sudden there's this coaching union, like unwritten rules, because now everybody's coming out like, you don't do that. You don't break down coaches and publicly criticize them like that. But I just don't understand why they're even that, like, why that exists. If it's facts, it's facts. I mean, he even cited, like, they were 29th in the league, so 29th being, like, one of the most, in, like, pre-snap penalties on both sides of the ball. And it's like, you just start to see the statistics and all the proof that really shows that the Broncos were pretty much a mess last year. And it's like, it's obvious. I mean, there's a reason he's not there anymore, right? And they brought Sean Payton in literally out of retirement to come and fix this team. So we'll see. I mean, for me, of course, I watched a lot of Broncos games last year because I had Russell Wilson as my quarterback, but they were a mess. But I'll tell you what, Russell looked really bad last year.
Terrible.
I mean, he looked confused. His reads were off. The throws were, like, hitting the ground. A lot of mistakes.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see this year and maybe this year and next year. This is kind of basically his last little stint to show if he's actually losing a step or if he still got it and it was just a result of bad coaching.
Right. And what you mentioned, like the pre-snap penalties, that comes down to coaching because player performance, bad throws, drop footballs, those are on the players.
Yeah, and discipline.
Right. Pre-snap penalties, anything on the field, that's all coaching. So he was a first-year coach, I should say, so we'll give him a little bit of leeway, but they have a chance to meet in Week 5, October 8th in Denver, Jets, Broncos. So
What is that? Is that a primetime one or
That's
is
a
it
125 start.
Okay.
But I would not be surprised to see that get flexed up. It's a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
early in the year for a flex, but the NFL loves drama. Come on now.
Yeah. Well, especially if they get off to a really good start.
Right.
I mean, they'll definitely flex a game. NFL has no shame.
None.
They'll
Zero.
knock anybody off of prime time
Right.
if it means that they're going to get more views, which is fine as a business model. But you know what I mean? Like, it depends on how they start. We'll see. That's kind of early, like you said, for a flex, but I don't know, man. It's interesting. But then how about Rodgers kind of come into the defense of Hackett? So for anybody that doesn't know, Nathaniel Hackett was, I believe, the quarterback coach in Green Bay. And that's who Rodgers worked very closely with. And he kind of regarded him as his favorite coach. I think it was either his favorite or the best coach that he's had. I think it was his favorite is the word he used that he's experienced so far. And Rodgers kind of, for me, I mean, he had this leadership kind of quality about him in Green Bay that kind of tailed off towards the end of his tenure there. Yeah. And it feels like right now he's just kind of revitalizing that and really trying to embrace that role of like, this is my last few years to try to win something and really kind of cultivate a sort of locker room that's going to breed success and bring, playoff wins and hopefully a Super Bowl appearance, right? And you get down to the end like this, and you can see he kind of has that perspective, especially with like Hard Knocks being around. Right. Not saying he's faking anything, but he kind of has that like I'm saying the right things at the right time, right. And it's nice to see though because I mean he's sticking up for his coach who is. He used to work really closely with. Right. And not only that, but it's like he's showing that he's going to be a locker room guy, somebody who's going to stand up for his teammates, stand up for his coaching staff as well. And for me, it's refreshing to see that from Rodgers.
It is. New York fits his zesty style. He's a little zesty, especially in his later years now. The play is still there, but it's not what it was. So he's getting a little zesty on us. He's getting a little diva-ish sometimes, and it's nice to see the third. Well, how old is Aaron Rodgers now? 38?
Yeah, I think he's about 38.
It's nice seeing the 38-year-old control the locker room because it's either going to be him or Zach Wilson, the MILF lover. So give me Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, wow.
I just wanted to throw that one in there.
Just an early Zach
Word
Wilson.
of the day, MILF lover. Bam. There we go. Early on.
No, but again, it's like one of the game's best, right, over his career. And yeah, he hasn't won many Super Bowls, but you're talking about an elite talent and somebody who's at the back end of his career now, and he's taken a $35 million pay cut because he said, a lot of players now in the NFL, the way that the league's shifting is that a lot of valuable players become available at the trade deadline. Right. And so he kind of took this pay cut just in case there's a big name that becomes available, which for me, if you're asking me, I think he's holding out hope that Davante Adams.
I already knew where you were going with that.
Even though Davante's already said, like, I want to play at least like another year or so with the Raiders. And I think he even said a few days ago that he wants to retire a Raider, which I love to hear that. Wow. But I'm just like, that's bold claims because there's so much that can happen with the Las Vegas Raiders in the span of even just a half a season. So we'll see if he keeps that same sentiment. But my point is going back to the whole availability at the trade deadline is that he's taken this big pay cut. He's literally pushing all of his chips in for the team right now. And I just think somebody at the back end of his career, he has that perspective and is really trying to take advantage of the opportunity he has.
Going back to Davante real quick, it gives me the Kyrie Boston fans, I want my jersey in the rafters kind of energy. And we all know Kyrie's on his second team since that Boston deal. So, Davante, we'll see you in San Francisco. Or Santa Clara now, sorry.
Oh, my God.
Another bold claim here. But I want to go back to Rodgers' comments. He called Payton insecure for his comments. Yeah. I don't know if insecure is the right word for that. Again, I think it was more taking a load off of Russ, and I wouldn't call that insecurity. In a weird way, I feel like Sean Payton as a coach and Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback kind of have a similar career. Guys that have had these teams that were heavy favorites or heavy roster, like just big-time talents on the roster. And they both got one championship to show for it so far, and long careers.
Like really good regular seasons. They kind of win maybe a playoff game or so, but in the end they kind of underachieve in a way.
Right. They run into those Niners. They just can't get past them.
Oh, here he goes.
Vernon Davis with the catch on the Saints, crying in the arms of Jim Harbaugh, and then Packers. Oh my gosh, doesn't matter where it's at. Raheem Mostert 4 touchdowns in Santa Clara, or in the tundra with a Talanoa Hufanga recovered punt in the snow.
Don't ever put a sorry receiver like Crabtree on me.
Oh, no, we're going back to that. Oh, my gosh.
All right, I just had to throw a little shot for that.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I'm talking about the Raiders. You can throw a little stab in there if you need.
We could spend the rest of the pod talking about the Raiders.
Welcome to our 44-minute segment called Jabs. We're gonna just throw jabs back and forth. Raider jab, Niner jab, Warriors jab. This is gonna get messy, folks.
Oh yeah, for real. That would be a good little bout there.
Oh no, it'd be great.
But going back to this insecure label, I think for Rodgers, again, he's just sticking up for him, and I think he's fighting fire with fire. Because I agree with you. I don't think it has anything to do with insecurity. Nah. I mean, at the end of the day, is it harsh? Yeah. But is it also factual? Yeah. I mean, people can't take public factual scrutiny anymore. It becomes, it's like, oh, disrespectful. It's an unwritten rule. It's, you just don't do things like that. You know what I say? I'm like, let's have some accountability.
Right.
He got fired. What else is there to say? I mean, there's clearly something that backs that up in the reasoning as to why he's not there anymore. I mean, Sean Payton was literally doing TV analysis, and they were like, let's bring him out of retirement to be the coach. I mean, so there speaks volumes to that. But like I said, I appreciate the fact that Rodgers is standing up to him. But, I think he's just fighting fire with fire at that point.
Between the two teams, who has the better season? Both of them are in very difficult divisions. You have the AFC West, which is obviously Mahomes and the Chargers, who everybody thinks are the best team in football half the time, but I haven't seen it yet personally. But the AFC West, really good division. AFC East, we already know about the Giants and Buffalo. We know about the Giants as in Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, I should say. But you know about them. We know about Tua's Dolphins. So both of these teams are in tough divisions. Who comes out on top between the two of them?
For me, I think it's the Jets. I just think with Rodgers there and the defense that they have as well with Saleh and I just think I mean Saleh's he's legit, man, and I think the better balance all around, especially if we'll dive into this later, but if they land somebody like a Dalvin Cook as well to add to that offense, I think they just have the firepower, and I think Rodgers at this point is a better quarterback than Wilson, and with some injuries that have hit the Broncos, which again we'll touch on soon, but when you start losing weapons in the training camp and it's a new coach and a new system first year, I just think it's a safer bet to go with Rodgers. I mean, he's in the first year as well, but Rodgers is almost like system proof, man. I feel like you could put him in any offense and they'd still succeed.
Right. Kind of like a KD of football a little bit. Just throw him in any sort of system.
Yeah, he's going to go get buckets.
He'll adapt. He'll figure it out.
He'll throw for 4,000 yards and 25 plus touchdowns and you'll be on your way type of thing. So he's probably, and this is interesting to talk about. I mean, without putting aside like Mahomes maybe, and maybe like Burrow, Allen, maybe like that tier one. I think Rodgers and those three are like you could plug and play them in any system and they would still succeed.
Yeah, it'd be fine.
That'd be something interesting to talk about. I mean, I think that those four are probably it. But random little sidebar here. Did you see Burrow now rumored to be the next one on the quarterback Netflix series?
Oh, really?
So he initially came out saying, or I don't know if his agent leaked or if he personally said it in comments, but he wasn't interested. And now it's come out that he's already agreed to do it or something. So I think the Manning brothers came back to him like, how about this much money?
What's that show called again?
Quarterbacks.
Here's the promo of Quarterback next season. Here we go. Starring Joe Burrow. Ladies, watch. We just referenced this little button right here one more time. I really wanted to use it, and I saw Joe Burrow as the opportunity. Joe Shiesty, man. But calf injury earlier this week, Joe Burrow. I don't think it'll hinder him too much, but
yeah, I mean he has time to recover, right? But I mean when you've seen it, it was like that's an Achilles.
Yeah, I thought of Eli Apple initially, or not Eli Apple. What was his name? Minnesota quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. I don't want to say Eli Apple. Teddy Bridgewater. He had that crazy injury in training camp in Minnesota a couple years ago, maybe 7 years ago, or the teammates were throwing up on the field. You always assume the worst. So initially I'm thinking, oh, my God, Joe Burrow, are you going to be out for the year? Are you going to be out for the first 8 weeks? Luckily, it doesn't seem too bad, but.
Yeah, no. And the crazy thing is they had a video of it like when it happened, and he kind of like runs and he like pulls up immediately and he looks back at his leg like in the minute. And usually when you have that Achilles, everybody that has had it like publicly as an athlete says it feels like you like got kicked in the back of your leg.
Right.
So your first reaction is always to like look back at it and like figure out what like just hit you. Right. And in fact, like it's nothing. It's just your Achilles popping. And it looked like that's exactly what he did.
Right.
But luckily gets a calf strain. It's something similar to like a KD when he had that that grade 2 calf strain on the Warriors.
Right.
So he's got to rehab it and make sure that he's good, because we all see what happened if you come back too early, even with KD. I mean, and quarterback is arguably even a more tougher, more physical position than what KD is doing in basketball. So
especially with the O-line in Cincinnati, man. Joe Burrow, you can't take any risks on that O-line.
Oh, he's constantly running. Oh, that's the thing. So it's
if Cincinnati gets an O-line, we'll save this talk for another day, but they will be a juggernaut. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's go back to the Jets really quick, because we were talking about how they would probably finish better, at least in my opinion, than the Broncos, but they could possibly get even that much better with bringing in Dalvin Cook.
Right. They've already got Breece Hall coming back from an injury, but Dalvin, oh my God, he would take that to another level. And right now, I know Vegas odds don't really mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but they've got the Jets at plus 400 at the third best odds to land him. I think it's a great fit, personally, especially with Rodgers now, because Dalvin wouldn't be the centerpiece of that offense. A couple other teams that they got as the Patriots are the favorite right now at plus 150, and I could see that too.
I just don't see him wanting to go to New England, though.
Oh, no,
I mean, it's like, did you see, was it him or was it somebody else? I can't remember, but somebody like had dinner and they sent Mac Jones, and there's like a picture of them sitting down at dinner and Mac Jones is next to him, and it's like, that's
Y'all
not the
said Mac Jones.
Yeah,
this was your come to our team,
right? Like that's your pitch, like that's your sit down in the Hamptons, like that's who you send, right? You know, like the Warriors sent Steph, Clay, Draymond, like everyone, and the Patriots are like, Mac, let's send you down, just have a good little conversation with him.
Send him a Cody brother or something. My goodness,
exactly. I mean, it's like you could have pretty much picked anyone else,
right?
But I don't know. So for me, I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense. And if he does do that, if he doesn't go to the Jets, in my opinion, because who's second?
Miami.
Yeah, Dolphins is a decent little landing spot for him as well. I just think right now he wants to play with the best players, or at least if I were him, I'd want to be playing with the best players possible. And you can play with one of the best quarterbacks ever in Rodgers, and to have him in a new system, new area, and then not only that, but you're not going to get run down, especially with kind of how the running backs are now approaching their like workload and the way that they in their situations. All the running backs, like, they used to want to be 3 down back, that power back, you know. Now it's like, why do that if it just means you're going to have more mileage on you? Teams are going to value you less. And you know, I mean, it's going to affect your payday and your body the most.
Right.
So if he can go somewhere like the Jets, and now he's in a backfield that he kind of shares touches, but he can still stay fresh, be explosive, and still kind of be a high-quality player for most of the year, that just makes the most sense to me. And then I think with Rodgers, you're going to be able to have a lot of outlets. He can have a lot of more screen. He can catch the ball a lot more and be more of a dual threat rather than always just being an inside the tackles type of running back.
It's crazy what's happened to the running back position. It used to be, I mean, it still is a valued position, but back then it was like, you know, it was the spot. And now you got these guys, they have 4 or 5 year career. Look at Dalvin Cook. He's been relevant since maybe 2018. And now he's a free agent and he's looking for a job. And it seems like it happens again and again and again. And when someone like Isaiah Pacheco goes in the 7th round, I think he was one of the last picks of the rounds as well. When someone like that comes out of the 7th round and they're a featured back all of a sudden, it just dampens that market even more. So these running backs, man, I feel bad for them, because once you hit 27 and as a running back in the NFL now, you are viewed as a 3-year guy at best. Get him up for as cheap as possible. Look at Zeke. Look at Dalvin.
Yeah.
These guys.
I agree. And the thing was, it used to be 30. Because remember, it was kind of like Adrian Peterson hit 30, and then it was like a lot of people were hitting this 29, 30, 31, and it was like, okay, that's it. And now, like you said, it's almost after your initial contract, after you're drafted, it's like you're either a superstar and we're going to assign you to a deal that still is underpaid technically in terms of your value, or we're just going to draft somebody new, have another 5-year contract for somebody that's a rookie that we can rely on as well, and then we just keep rinse and repeating. So that's like the weird cycle that they have right now.
It is. Shout out to a running back that just retired, Sony Michel. Quick little shout out. Had a great career, 5-year career. Got himself a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shoney Michel.
Yeah, no, he was just a
right
power
way.
back. He was very solid, reliable, didn't
Right.
fumble the ball or turn it over very often. Just a good downhill running back. And I remember him on the Patriots, and he played on a couple of other teams. But yeah, just a really solid running back. But then you look at somebody like that, and you're like, he's 28. He's 28,
And he's gone, just like
and
that.
and he called it. And it's you got to think that the situation that they're in right now has played a part into it.
Right.
And likely if he's retired and he's decided to forego that mileage and all those hits and that the undervaluing of money that he probably thinks he deserves more of, he's probably been smart with his money to this point and feels like, I don't need to keep doing this if I'm only going to make 2, 3, 4 million and take a ton of hits. And I want to be around longer. I don't know if he's got family, so there's a lot of things that go into it now. But you're starting to see people. I think there was even a couple rookie players that like retired. Like there was a rookie fullback. I think it was on either Pittsburgh or somewhere else, but literally just got drafted and like went to training camp and then all of a sudden he's retired. I mean, I don't know the exact reason, but you're seeing people in these running back positions
smacked by Minka and said, "Never mind, I am not made for this. This is not what I want to do with my life."
Probably could have, but again, you just like you see guys at 28 calling it, and you're like, this is going to be something that starts to happen. Like these guys now have to have this sort of perspective, like I'm not going to get paid what I deserve, and if I've already kind of got my bag and I've been smart with it, why do I need to continue taking all these hits? Because running back is arguably the most physical position in terms of the offense that you have. And so I don't think the value, going back to kind of what you had said, I don't think the value of the running back is less. I think the value of what they pay them is less.
Oh, yeah. No,
because running is still a huge part of the NFL like scheme, even though it's become more of a passing league. You have to have that running game. And now, if you think about it, they used to be like just relying on one person. Now they have like a three.
I was about to say the evolution of the backfield is crazy.
It's like a 2-3 headed monster now, and there's rarely anybody that plays 3 downs. It's like literally McCaffrey. And who else? I mean, that's the first person
the Niners, they had so much issues with injuries last year. This year, they'll have Elijah Mitchell back, and we'll see what they do. But it really, I'm trying to think about around the league right now. A true 3-down back, I cannot think of one.
Yeah.
The closest thing I can think of, maybe, I know Atlanta loves having a featured back, so maybe Bijan Robinson this upcoming season might be that guy, but
I would even put McCaffrey in that situation though, because in the important games and when it's crunch time, he's gonna be on the field every single snap. Like, sorry, they're not gonna all of a sudden run first, second down, and then Eli Mitchell get in the game now for third down,
right? Or
even have him on an earlier down. Like they're gonna have McCaffrey running that thing because they have so many options. He opens up the offense to a certain degree that's like incomparable to anybody else, and so I think he's one of them. You could call Derrick Henry one of them if it's very run heavy. But even somebody like Nick Chubb usually comes out on third down.
Right, you got Kareem coming in or someone.
Saquon is probably one that stays in as well now. I mean, even then he got subbed out a lot on third downs last year. I think Wayne Gallman or somebody else like
Wayne Gallman. There was somebody else too. Wayne Gallman was the primary. I think you had.
It was like Breida. I think it was Breida.
Oh, yeah, they did have
it was Matt Breida.
Right. Another Niner legend right there.
Breida, former Niner.
He is fast.
Yeah, no, so, again, just going – it's like the running back position is almost – it's valued, like, I think the same, but in a different perspective. But financially, it's been lowered on the tiers. Like, it's crazy because you see somebody like Saquon, which, by the way, I want to talk about that contract, by the way. But – you see somebody like Saquon get instead of 10.1, he gets 11 million.
Yeah.
And then you get Cole Kmet literally the next day, tight end for the Bears.
But 32 mil, right?
You got like 4 years, 50 million.
Oh my god.
And it's like Saquon's out here scrapping for Cole Kmet money.
Right.
And Cole Kmet's making more than Saquon Barkley per year.
Right.
And he's locked up for 4 years. And it's like it's crazy to think about because I mean running back like Saquon in terms of their success is so much more important than Cole Kmet, man. If you were to put him on the same team. Like it's just crazy the difference in the payment structure that is right now, especially in the CBA. And then the collective viewpoint of all like the front office and the coaches and the way that they approach contracts for running backs.
Right. Cole Kmet at his ceiling is going to give you 700 yards and 8 touchdowns at the ceiling. And Saquon's going to give you, like, at the floor, 1,400 scrimmage yards, probably 10-plus touchdowns. And that's the floor. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, if he stays healthy, he's a dual threat, and he scores touchdowns, and he's a deadly red zone running back. I mean, that's what he is. But, again, like you said, I mean, and, of course, Cole Kmet probably has value in other ways, blocking, schematics, and stuff like that. But you talk about Cole Kmet, 450, he's getting more per year than Saquon Barkley, who basically is the only reason why the Giants are relevant from year to year. It's like, that's just insane. And then go into his contract really quick, a little sidebar on that. Dude, it is sickening how he made so much noise and was like kind of this face of holding out. I might say F the Giants and
leaving.
I might just say F the Giants and not play this year. He's like saying on a podcast and stuff. And then he turns down 10.1 from the tag, but
11.
I seen a little meme. It was like Saquon looking at 10.1. He was like, and it was like Saquon looking at 11. He was like, and I'm like, dude, it's the difference of $900,000. And I get it's the whole like betting on yourself. You know? It's a 1-year contract, right? You're not playing under the tag, but I'm like, he basically like made noise and like tried to lead this movement just to take $900,000 more and basically just sell out, basically.
Right. But I want to transition to another important position in the NFL, probably the most difficult position to play in football, in my opinion, at least. Jalen Ramsey, Miami Dolphins, is going to be out for the foreseeable future. He just had knee surgery. He said he'll be back. He said he'll be at 100% this year, but this leaves the Dolphins in a little bit of a hole. They've got a good defense right now, and they fortified the line last year with Bradley Chubb. They've got Xavier Howard on this side. They've got Deshaun Elliott. Brandon Jones playing safety, who I loved last year. Big scan man, Brandon Jones. Shout out to him. Going on this Dolphins team, going with Ramsey, where do you see this defense ranking? Where do you see this team ranking as a whole this season?
Well, obviously, Ramsey's a big loss, which, by the way, Streets is saying that Tyreek gave him a double move, and that's what tore his meniscus. You just hate to see that. And talk about Ramsey, though, he's kind of been getting burnt in the last few years. I'm not saying that's what happened, but he's been kind of – I mean, he's not been performing at the same level that he was. Let's say that. He still makes great plays. He's still, kind of your go-to number 1 to number 2 cornerback and coverage guy. But, I mean, obviously losing him is a big loss. I think he'll be out for like 6 to 8 weeks. Is that kind of what it is?
I think it's either he's out 6 to 8 weeks or he might miss the first 6 games. I know there was a 6 in there somewhere.
Either way, he's going to miss a good little chunk of the start of the season, right? And so it's a big loss. I mean, the Dolphins' defense is pretty solid, though, all around. Like, they've had a kind of middle to upper middle pack defense for the last few years where they get pressure, they can get some turnovers and, like, some pick sixes. I know they've had some decent DB play in the past few years, but I mean, I think it affects him. But I think Ramsey's not going to make your defense all of a sudden just a top 5 defense, just having Jalen Ramsey. So I don't know if they'll be a top 10 defense, but I think they'll be in like that early teen range, maybe like the 13 to 16 type of range.
There'll be a defense that the first like 8 weeks of the season they'll probably be like one of those. What is this Miami defense? Right. And I think they'll unravel a little bit. We see that a lot, especially with young defenses or defenses that rely on speed. The first half of the year, super solid, top 10 ranking above along the board. Another injury I wanted to point out this night was Tim Patrick, torn Achilles on the Broncos. So just speaking of the Broncos, another receiver down, and I want to say KJ Hamler left as well.
Yeah, he got diagnosed. I think it was pericarditis. It was a mild heart inflammation, and I believe they waived him, or they're gonna waive him.
Damn.
And with the intent of bringing him back is what I saw once he's done. But I mean, it's like, damn, that's crazy. You get diagnosed with that, and then their team lets you go too. It's just that's the harsh side of the business, right? I mean, like if you just have like these conditions and if you're gonna hit the team payroll hard enough, it's like just get rid of you. We wish you well. I mean, they might still take care of him and give him like the medical like treatment that he needs, but they're waiving him, and it's like it's just so crazy from like the surface level, the business that is like NFL and sports, because the franchise at the end of the day got to do what they have to do to save money and what's going to put them in the best position to succeed. So that's harsh. But going to Tim Patrick really for a second, because Tim Patrick is one of those guys who's like that wide receiver 3, but like a really good wide receiver 3.
Step up when needed type.
Yeah, and if he's on a really good day, he could be like a low to mid like wide receiver 2 for your team if you really wanted. Like when I think of Tim Patrick, I think of somebody who has been unlucky, but he's very similar to like a Adam Thielen, where he's not very fast. He's not going to be the most athletic and go and moss you, but he's going to run solid routes. Right. He's going to find those gaps, and he's got good hands. He's a reliable receiver. And so it's just unfortunate what's happened to him because it's an Achilles this year, but I think it was an ACL last year. And it's, a very Klay Thompson-esque type of injury kind of roadmap. And it's just unfortunate for somebody who is just a solid player. He comes in, does his work. He's just reliable, and you just hate to see something like that for him.
Yeah, the Broncos, they have a receiver room now led by Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. No shade to Courtland Sutton. I want to say this, though. I've never found him to be an attractive receiver from a fantasy perspective. And really I don't want to say from an NFL perspective because this guy, he's a good receiver. He's in the NFL. But a lot of people have a lot of hype around Courtland Sutton every year in that Broncos locker room, and I just don't see the hype. I'm wondering if you do.
It's not that I believe the hype. I just think he's a very solid player. I don't think it's anything more than that, though, because he's almost like a lower performing Mike Williams, where he has those boom plays, comparison. Right? He's very relying on those boom plays. He's going to get you that 20 to 30, 40-yard catch, that bomb from Wilson, and he'll get you those intermediate routes, kind of the crossing routes in the middle. But he's inconsistent, right? It's like you get 8 for 110 one week, and then you get maybe 4 for 35 the next. Yeah. And so it's one of those where you'd like to see him put together a string of games with some consistency and also be a little bit more multi-dimensional and then not just relying on long routes, medium to long catches, and kind of be more contributing consistently.
Right. And the other receiver in that locker room, Jerry Jeudy, I've been waiting for him to burst onto the scene like CD has, obviously. CD, Ruggs, and Jeudy were the big names coming out of the draft in, what was it, 2018, 19, I want to say?
I don't know. I try not to remember that draft.
Yeah, it was rough for the Raiders.
As a Raider fan, I wanted Jeudy or Lamb.
I think everybody did. I think Ruggs was clearly the third option. And this is not even in hindsight. I think going into the draft,
it was.
Most people had it was Jeudy, Lamb, Ruggs.
Correct.
And the Raiders, what were they, like the 12th pick, 10th pick, somewhere
I don't remember what it was now, but all I know is that I think literally Lamb or Jeudy went right after the Raiders took
Jeudy
Ruggs.
Went next, I believe, to the Broncos. And I've been waiting on the Jeudy coming out party because in college, he was the guy. You got Alabama, Jerry Jeudy. He was the next big thing. And physically, he's got all the tools. He's a 6'1", a big guy, But so far, he's had glimpses, but he hasn't put together a stretch. Not even a 4 to 5 game stretch where you're like, this guy can lead a team.
And certainly health has played a little bit of an issue in that and played a role.
And coaching changes throughout his career already. Of course. But
yeah, and I mean, before Russell was there, who was throwing to him, right? I mean, I don't know. But for me, I think going into this year, I think this could be a big year for Jeudy because, of course, like we said, Sutton's kind of that downfield threat, but somebody who could be, those short to intermediate, even those medium routes. I think that's where Jeudy shines, and his route running is awesome. And I think that this could be an opportunity for him to have a breakout year if he stays healthy. I think especially he can really have a career year, and you get a new system. You get Sean Payton who can draw up plays and get the best players the ball. And I think Jeudy is a breakout candidate this year to maybe be in that ranked teen range in the in fantasy rankings. Right. And if he really if he stays healthy, I wouldn't be shocked if he has that fringe top 10 fantasy campaign, just because I would put him as the wide receiver 1 in Denver. Yeah. And so we'll see what happens. If Wilson turns it around, I could see him kind of having that fringe top 10.
He's one of those weird players that he could be a top 12 receiver, but he can also be 38. You don't know what you're going to get. And only time's going to tell for Jerry Jeudy this year.
Yeah. It's like right now he's Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
He's just Tyler Lockett, but he's a little bit more spread out. He'll get you a 200-point game, and then he'll get you 80, 60 points. And this is our scoring standard, of course, which translates. So standard fantasy scoring, just for future reference throughout episodes, standard scoring is usually a point for every 10 yards in standard leagues. And for us, we just multiply times 10. So for every yard, it's 1 point. So, but yeah, so he's kind of one of those guys that can get you 8 for 90 and 2 touchdowns one game, and then all of a sudden he'll have 4 for 60 the next and no touchdowns. So he needs to be in that range where he's constantly getting like close to 100 yards on 6 to 8 catches.
Right.
And I think if he stays healthy this year with a better scheme, I think I could see him doing that this year.
And just a bold prediction while you mentioned Tyler Lockett, I'm going to say that I believe Tyler Lockett will fall out of fantasy relevance this season.
Yeah.
Because the Seahawks run a 2-man receiver game most of the time. Yeah. And I believe in Jackson Smith-Njigba, who they drafted from Ohio State, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. This kid is a monster. And I not necessarily think they're going to trade Tyler Lockett, but I do think he's going to slide down to that wide receiver 3 role. And look out for Jackson Smith-Njigba because he is coming.
Yeah, no, I mean, you start to look at kind of what Lockett's been doing these last few years, and again, it's very spotty. And you bring in some fresh. I think it's Is it Jackson Smith-Njigba or in? I don't know how it is, but
something.
Anyways, JNG, JSJ or whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
JSN. I think that's what it is.
Go.
Sorry,
Jason.
Mine's getting there, but yeah, you bring a talent like that in through the draft, and he kind of fills that role. And I think, like you said, it will kind of start to push him out to the outskirts. That is Lockett. That is. And you could start to see him kind of become irrelevant mostly in the offense and then also in a fantasy perspective. So I would agree with that sentiment. I think that we can start to see players, especially like him, where it's very boom or bust, kind of start to transition out. Because I think a lot of talent is starting to come in through the draft, especially wide receiver-wise.
Right.
I feel like it's the deepest position in every single draft lately.
Yeah.
Like last few years, it's like always wide receiver is the heavy position.
Yeah, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, you had Justin Jefferson a few years ago.
Yeah.
And a gift that keeps on giving is that wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also Geno Smith, now that we're talking about the Seahawks really quick, how do you think that he's going to follow up? Because last year was kind of like a career year, a coming out party, right? He had all this coverage, and Geno Smith, what a story, right?
Right.
Kind of fails in his first kind of projects, and he becomes a backup, kind of learns the ropes, comes back, all of a sudden takes this offense at the helm, right, and brings the Seahawks to the playoffs, right? They had a wild card game, right?
I don't know if they made the wild card game. They might have snuck into the last wild card spot, but I'm not.
Well, don't quote me on that, but I will say they had a successful campaign compared to what they had last year.
Right.
And so what do you think about some expectations for him this year?
That's tough. I am very conflicted on Geno Smith for 2 reasons. The first one is that I like him as a person. I think he's a really good story. I think that his comeback from fall from grace to where he is now is incredible. I'm also a realist, and I'm also a Niner fan. I'm in the NFC West, so I'll try to leave that side out of it. He got paid. And now there's expectations. And the story now is not so much, look at this great comeback. Now it's like, you got paid. We expect you to be great. So can you perform under that kind of pressure? And we've seen a lot of players falter under that kind of pressure. I'm going to use a basketball reference here, and this is kind of a stretch, but Duncan Robinson, one of the best shooters in the NBA, he's, oh my gosh, this guy came out of nowhere. He's making all these threes all the time. Here's $90 million. Now we expect it of you. The last 2 seasons have been god awful. Minus this playoff run, he was pretty good. But even he was like, dude, once you get paid, it's a whole nother ballgame because now people expect you to be great all the time. So Geno's got $100 million in his bag. Hopefully he can live up to that pressure, but my money is not on Geno surviving that pressure. I do think that within the next 2 years, we'll see another quarterback in there, which I don't want to see because Geno, we love you, but realistically, I don't believe in him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair sentiment. I mean, of course, the league gets film on you, right? It's always kind of that second year, even though he's not a new player, not a rookie, but he's finally, these are the reads, these are the throws he's making, these are the plays he's making. The league has film on you now, and it's always that second year, which will apply to Brock as well over in Ninerland. It's like the league has film on you now. How do you adjust? How do you evolve your game to be able to make those plays and defy kind of what your game film has said that these are the things that you can do.
Right.
And so I agree with that. And good call on the Duncan Robinson thing because I do want to touch on some NBA stuff here in a second. But I wanted to talk about oh, man, I just drew a blank on it. I just drew a
You
blank.
you can find it. I see your notes right there.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the NBA thing really quick because I have that right here. And you were talking about Duncan Robinson. It just made me think about the news that's been going around in the NBA world. So they make so many changes at ESPN. First, they get rid of Van Gundy, right? And it seemed like, okay, Mark Jackson's going to stay. And then today, boom, bomb drops. Mark Jackson out at ESPN. Brand new crew coming in for the NBA Finals coverage.
Right.
Before we talk about who's going to fill in, can we talk about that is have your opinion all you want if you like Mark Jackson, you don't like Mark Jackson and Van Gundy. But that trio of Breen, Jackson, and Van Gundy.
It's legendary.
Oh, my goodness.
It is legendary.
I mean, how many? I think it's been it's easily been decade plus of them calling finals games. I mean, even back to, I think, Kobe on the Lakers when he was going. And it's just crazy that we've been hearing this trio for so long.
Right.
And now we're kind of in this modern era now where they're making changes. And I know that there was a lot of people that were against that trio that disliked it, thought they got
all
off.
of NBA Twitter for some reason that I don't understand.
And you know what? They weren't my favorite, but I think that they did a relatively very solid job, and they were easy to listen to the point, except for when Van Gundy and Jackson started complaining. Yeah. That was their downfall, in my opinion. Since we're going to start dissecting commentators now.
That's a foul.
But,
that's a foul.
Well, yeah, and then it's constant. It's Van Gundy nagging about rules, and I hate that they do this now, and they should change this, and it's you can have those comments, but it's when it drags on for 4 or 5 plays, and we're not even getting any. We're not even paying attention to the game anymore.
Right. And then Mike Breen has to reel him back in. And by the way, a 3,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like he responds with a 3. Oh, tough shot by Steph Curry.
Now that you've missed 6 sequences.
But he's like, but you know what I mean, Mark? It needs to get rid of the game. Right. And you get it out of the game. And you're like, okay, let's reel it back in. So I think that was kind of their downfall because I liked their banter when it wasn't complaining about the game and stuff like that. But it's just crazy that this trio is now different. And so rumored, at least that I've read, out, Mark Jackson out, Jeff Van Gundy out. In comes Doris Burke, and rumored in comes Doc Rivers.
Please, no.
That sounds atrocious.
Yeah,
so
that's tough.
For me, it's like, if you're going to make this big of a change, right, with somebody who's so familiar and they're a solid trio together, and you're going to bring in Doris Burke and then Doc Rivers with that god-awful voice.
I've smoked for 34 lifetimes.
It's wild. It's wild that they're going to make that change, dude.
Yeah, it's if they would have brought someone, and I know that Reggie Miller's under contract, maybe it was elsewhere, but if someone like Reggie Miller or someone like, is it Mark Jones?
Mark Jones.
I know he does the primary play-by-play, and so, you might not want to go to the other role. But Doc Rivers and Doris Burke's not too bad. Sideline reporter Doris Burke, we love her. She's done a lot for women in the game and whatnot. But Doc, if you're going to replace Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy and Doc Rivers is the name you have on the list, throw the list away. Throw the list away and start again. There are many other people. I'd rather have Bill Walton in there. Somebody, come on. Yeah. Come on.
And I totally agree with you on the Doc Rivers thing because, first of all, we haven't even heard him do any play-by-play.
Right.
Second of all, he's got a absolutely horrendous voice. Like, I don't even know how that's going to translate over TV. I mean, it'll be very interesting, especially if they move forward with that, to hear kind of how he adapts to that.
Right.
But for me, I like Doris as well, and I agree with all the things that you said about what she's done for women in sports, and I think she does a solid job. I just don't know if they were going to change it and bring Doris in. I'm curious to see how the chemistry is going to be because I'm a Doris Burke fan, but I'm not the biggest fan of her commentating.
Yeah.
And so if they were going to remove Van Gundy and Jackson, I almost would have liked to see them just go full throttle and nothing
Change
against Breen and axe Breen too.
Yeah.
And bring in somebody like a Mark Jones or something like that to kind of change the whole dynamic and really freshen it up because now I just feel like they're just keeping Breen, who's the same voice, but now it's just they have to refine some sort of identity versus just starting fresh and bringing in a trio that kind of already has that flow. And I don't know. It's just, for me, I'm not the biggest fan of the move because of who they replaced it with.
Right.
If they had made this move and it was something that was a little bit more complete of a move and a full reset, I think if you're going to reset, you just got to really do it all the way through. It's hard to keep some from the past and then bring in the new, and usually doesn't always work out well in that way.
And there's a lot of people that could have, even Ernie Johnson, he's dabbled in commentary and, play-by-play. You could have had a Mike Breen and maybe Reggie Miller and Ernie Johnson. You could have did, but I'm just baffled. And luckily right now it's only rumored to be Doc Rivers. That's not solidified. It's not a fact. It's not under contract yet.
Yeah, they're kind of like doing a filler. Like,
but
let's see how
that's
the
going to
public
be.
hears about this.
They're going to have to put Doc Rivers on a couple preseason games, maybe see how it goes.
Yeah,
for
you
him.
can't just plug in somebody that we've never heard or hasn't done it in a very long time. If he's done it, I'm not aware because he's always been coaching.
Right.
But you can't just throw him in there and then all of a sudden, like, he's got to get some really good reps in before he's on the biggest stage doing that. And same thing goes for Doris Burke. I don't think she's ever called an NBA Finals game. She's probably done, first round, second round, and Western Conference Finals and Conference Finals games, but I've never seen her do a Finals game. And again, mixing her dynamic with Breen, who is so familiar, it's going to be strange to see how that transition happens.
Yeah, it is.
But I don't know, man. Who I really enjoyed was Doug Collins when he used to call games. I'll have to show you some game film from Warriors highlights and stuff because I thought he was really good. And not Rick Barry, but Rick Barry's son. I can't remember. I don't know why. Brent Barry, I think.
Okay.
But he was really solid as well. And I thought that those guys, they kind of got phased out. And I thought that those guys were really solid.
I love me some Iron Eagle. I know you're not the biggest Iron Eagle fan, but
I would.
Oh yeah,
I would be totally against hearing Iron Eagle on the biggest stage on the finals. I'm sorry. Call me. An Iron Eagle hater.
He's not a finals voice.
Yeah, call me an Iron Eagle hater, but sorry, he is not a finals voice type of person. Breen is there, and I really do think Mark Jones filled in really well when because Breen tested positive for COVID and during the Boston series, the Boston Warriors finals, and I thought he filled in really well. He had a good couple iconic calls when like Jordan Poole hit the half court shot and different stuff like that. So I thought he filled in really well. I think him and I don't know. Mark Jones is definitely second in terms of I think best play-by-play right now.
Yeah, you got the entire Giants broadcast team: Dwayne Kuiper, John Miller, Dave Fleming. And then you got
We're talking about basketball.
And then you got Mike Breen and Mark Jones. But speaking of Giants, speaking of baseball, we've got the trade deadline that is going to be, let's see, we got 10:24 West Coast time. We got, I want to say it's 6 o'clock East Coast time.
East
tomorrow.
Coast,
So we got 3 p.m. We got about math.
Yeah,
17 hours somewhere.
Yeah, they were just talking on the radio today on 95.7 The Game about how they were expecting more moves around 2 to 3 o'clock tomorrow. So that's when the deadline hits.
We do have some moves underway. A lot of starting pitching is on the way. So we got Max Scherzer going from the Mets, who are in a full sell mode.
Yeah,
they've gotten rid of Mark Canha. They've gotten rid of David Robinson, that was the closer, and now Max Scherzer goes to the Rangers, which is an insane thought because they've got DeGrom, they've got Nathan Eovaldi from Boston, who's having the best year of his career. Now you throw Scherzer in the mix. They've got John Gray, the former Rocky, who's having a great year, and you got Andrew Heaney, the Heen Dog, He's kind of a high flyer. He might give you 8 innings of 2 runs, or he might give you 2 innings of 8 runs. You never really know what you're going to get. But Scherzer in that Texas locker room with Bruce Bochy and those guys, I like that a whole lot. I think that elevates them up to the Astros level, the high-end AL teams, the Rays. That's going to be a tough team to beat come October.
Yeah, I mean, they're sitting at 60-46 right now, which, by the way, this is a ridiculous stat. Run differential plus 145 for the Rangers right now. That's insane.
I'm actually surprised that they're not higher up in the record because we got teams like the Giants. They're 9 games above 500, and I think they've got a plus 22 run differential.
Yeah, plus 24 after tonight, of course, after the game that just ended. But plus 145 is the second highest in all of MLB.
Braves got to be first,
Braves
right?
are number
Those
one.
guys
Good
are what,
shout
plus
there.
260 somewhere in there?
They're actually only a little bit above them, plus 148.
Okay.
But they're 67 and 37.
What are their runs per game right now, if you can pull that up?
What's that?
Do they have a runs per game on there or runs scored?
Runs scored for the Braves is 584, and the Rangers is 609. So they've scored more.
That's insane.
Yeah,
well, they got some ballers, man. Marcus Semien, former A. You know Marcus Semien.
Oh,
they
yeah,
got
of
Corey
course.
Seager, Adelise Garcia. I mean, they've got some ballers in Texas.
Really quick on Semien, he was one of my favorite A's of late. I thought he was just a really good franchise face. Like, he wasn't that actually a star, so to say, but he was really solid, somebody you can rely upon, and he was just a good franchise player, culture guy to have. I'm sad to see him go because he was one of the better A's in recent memory. But going back to the Rangers really quick, because now you're talking like Scherzer's over there. I mean, they're deadly, man. They have a lineup from top to bottom that's really scary. Them and the Braves are like just the favorites right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, easily. And so you talk about, they're really pushing all their chips in right now. I mean, it's crazy to see. And they've traded for more than just Scherzer, right? Haven't they made other moves to bring in like other
I do think they've made a couple of other minor moves.
Yeah.
They've been really active the last 2 seasons as a whole. They've been bringing in people like crazy. But they know another team to watch, and they haven't made a whole lot of trade noise yet, is Baltimore. I think Baltimore is a team that's going to make some noise because they've got a lot of young assets. Even on their bench, they've got like 4 or 5 guys that would probably start on like 24 different rosters across baseball. Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly head to the Dodgers, my rival Dodgers. That's a good move for LA. They also brought in Kike Hernandez last week from Boston, reuniting with the Dodgers. Lance Lynn's one of those guys who's a 3rd, 4th arm in your, starting rotation. But come October, he's been in the show for so long. He can march out there in an elimination game when you're down 3-2 in a series in Game 6. You give him the ball, he's not going to be faced. Yeah. He's going to go out there and give you 6-7 innings, maybe 3 runs, no sweat. And then Joe Kelly, who they just traded for, he was kind of a heart and soul of their little rivalry with the Astros back a couple years ago. So
that's Goggles, right?
That's Goggles.
Yeah. No, but Lance Lynn, he's like you said, he's unfazed and he kind of just goes out there and he throws his pitches. I mean, I think he only has like 2 or 3 pitches, right? Because Lance Lynn is like always throwing gas. Like he just always throws fastballs.
Fastball, cutter, slider. He's kind of like a reliever almost. He's got like a reliever's arsenal,
Yeah, no, but he's legit, and he's no BS. He's going to go out there, he's going to throw his pitches, he's going to find his spots, and he's going to live with the results. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's good pickups for the Dodgers there. I mean, they might not both be having their best years ever or be kind of in their prime or their best years that they've had in past, but I think it's really good depth to pick up for the Dodgers for postseason type stuff.
I mean, especially with Walker Buehler coming back potentially, you got to think in the playoffs, Buehler, Julio Urias, Clayton Kershaw is your 3rd starter,
right? And
then you got Lance Lynn now. Yeah. And in the playoffs, you got usually a 3 to 4 man rotation. You're not going 5, 6 starters deep. Yeah. You got 3, 4 guys. Those are 4 pretty good guys.
For sure. I mean, that's definitely respectable. And like I said, to have that depth in the postseason, I mean, that's going to be huge when that time comes around. We'll see, man. The thing with the MLB, though, I mean, you get these guys that happen at this trade deadline, and we got like 56 games left in the year.
Right.
There's so much time. There's so much time that at the trade deadline, it's almost like it's like a premature poker hand in the MLB. That's what it is. It's like you either like right now, there's still 56 games left. You either push all your chips in or you fold.
Right.
It's basically, or you just stay put and just kind of check. But it's like most teams are either going to fold and sell or go all in and push their chips in, like the Dodgers, like the Rangers, like the Braves as well.
Right. Well, the last 2 weeks, we literally saw that with the Cubs and the Angels because a lot of people thought Shohei was on the move. Everybody's been trading Cody Bellinger in these mock trades and whatnot. Well, the Cubs ripped off 7 straight wins.
Yeah.
Guess what? They ain't selling no more. Yeah. They actually traded for Jeimer Candelario today from the Nationals. It's been a really good story this year. So they're buyers. Shohei, not on the market anymore. They went and got Lucas Giolito and fortified their rotation, which I don't think was the right move personally because Shohei is leaving. If you're an Angel fan, I'm sorry. Shohei is gone. He's not staying. They could have gotten one of the biggest hauls of all time for a rental piece. And I get it. Like, if you're an owner, Artie Moreno's the owner of the Angels. I completely understand it. Your fans want you to compete, and you want to compete. You've invested time and money, and you want to keep Shohei, obviously. So I completely understand it from that standpoint of an owner, from a fan. It's the right move in air quotes, but it's really not, in my opinion. Chris Rose and Trevor Plouffe had got a big debate over this on Baseball Today, but I really side with Chris Rose on this, and I don't think it was the right move. The Cubs, that was the right move. Cody Bellinger's having a great year. Why trade him when you're 2 games, 3 games out of first place in the Central, which is a division that's up for grabs? You have the Reds, the Brewers, and the Cubs all separated by a handful of games.
Yeah.
You go on a 6-game win streak in baseball, next thing you know, you're in first place.
Yeah, no, but it's crazy because it happens at this time of the year, and it's almost like they were thinking, I only got, when you watch, like, World Poker Tour, and it's like, you got, like, a 10% chance of winning this hand. And then all of a sudden you rip off 7 straight, and now you're looking at, like, a 45%, and you're like, well, I mean, only 1 card flipped, but it's like, well, you might as well just keep them and kind of see where the hand plays out now, and that's kind of what the Cubs did. But then you look at the Angels, and And I don't know if I fully agree with your thoughts on the fact that they could have gotten an unreal haul because of the fact that it's literally a 2-month rental. So I don't know how many teams are really going to be throwing farm prospects out just for a 2-month pitch to them. You know what I mean? Because even though the Giants were a team that were heavily rumored to maybe be in for him, but they're asking probably for too much.
Right.
And for a team to give up their farm system or even stars right now to have a 2-month rental of a player that likely, and especially if you're not on the West Coast,
right,
don't even bother because he doesn't even want to go to you guys. He doesn't want to be further from home. Somebody like Ohtani is very much like Jokic in the NBA. He wants, like in the offseason, he wants to go back home. He don't want to stay where his team's at. He don't want to live where he lives all throughout the year. He wants to go back home, visit his family, and be in his culture, right?
Right.
And so for him, it's like, why even make a move if you're nowhere, if he's going to be further away, right? So then you look at the Dodgers, you look at the Padres, you look at the Giants. Don't even got to mention the A's, but all the teams in Cali or even closer on the western side, it's like if you're going to make a move for them, you got to give up so many farm pieces for a 2-month rental. So I almost think that they, on top of the fact that they had a good little road run to kind of, they won, I think, like 3 or 4 games on the road during this kind of trade deadline. They're like, well, at this point, we might as well push all our chips in and try to create a better pitch for him to stay because we're heading in the right direction. Maybe they make a wild card spot and they make the playoffs, maybe make a run. So I think that's really the only option they had left because what were they going to – would you rather give up Ohtani for a small package that is nowhere near his value and automatically lose him, or at least push some of your chips in, get something, like show him that we're going in the right direction.
Right.
We got more talent that maybe next year we can make a run at it. I think that was their only option at this point.
I do think the one advantage, though, of giving up a lot for Shohei right now is that you have 2-3 months extra to persuade him this is where you should stay. Let's say he goes to Seattle, right? Let's say Seattle gives the bank for Shohei. Now you're in Seattle. That's a team that can persuade you for 3 months. This is your home. Look at how the fans are adapting to you. Look at all and Seattle's got a huge Japanese fan base, going back to Ichiro. I do think it might be worth the risk for teams that A, are on the West Coast, B, are competitive, and C, can afford to give up a lot of young guys.
Yeah.
But I do want to he's not going to move, so we'll stop talking about Shohei. I do want to highlight 3 guys, well, maybe 4, that might be on the move. I'm going to say 2 guys that have been rumored to be on the move and one that's a kind of a wild card, I guess you can say.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Justin Verlander, I do think there's a very high possibility he's gone by tomorrow. The Mets have already sold 3 of their top guys. Verlander's an older player that clearly is not going to want to be there anymore. He's got 2-3 years left in his career probably. The Astros are linked to him. He's a former Astro. He won a World Series with the Astros. He won a Cy Young with the Astros. High chance he goes back to Houston, I think.
Yeah.
Nolan Arenado, third baseman for the Cardinals. That's a team that's, I don't even know where to start with those guys. They've got a very talented roster, but they've got nothing to show for it this year. I want to say they're 20 games under 500 right now. They've got to be last in the Central. Bringing up the stats
11 and a half
now.
games back, 47-60.
Yeah, well, they've won a little more late because they were 18 games under a few days ago. But
still,
Nolan could be on the move. There's a lot of teams that could use a third baseman. That's one of the positions in the MLB that's really prime. One name that I haven't heard in trade rumors and probably won't be traded, but if I had to put a bold prediction out there, I could see the Yankees trading Giancarlo Stanton. Because he's a guy that still has a lot of big name value, and he's owed a lot of money, and he misses a lot of games. Mm-hmm. And the Yankees, while they're not having the worst season, they're in last place in the AL East. I think they're 7 games above or 500 right now, but they're in last in the AL East. And they're looking up at some really good teams. They're looking up at Toronto. They're looking up at Baltimore, who's in first place. You got Tampa. There's no way they win the division, and they're probably not even going to get a wild card spot. So maybe you give up someone like Giancarlo, you get a couple young prospects, you unload a lot of money and a lot of commitment for a player that's clearly past his prime, gives you no defensive skill of any kind. He's purely a DH, and he's off the field way more than he's on it. So I would keep an eye on Giancarlo because he'll still attract the name value, but in terms of real value, he's not providing it anymore. He's hitting a $198.
Yeah, 198, 14 home runs, 35 RBIs. Yeah, and for me, going back to kind of what you said, it feels like he's kind of run his course there.
Yeah.
Like he had his couple big years. It was a big bat. He was really killing it. And now it's, like you said, he doesn't offer much more than hitting. Actually, that's all he offers is hitting. And if he's not hitting and you're paying him all this money, it's just totally not worth it at this point. So, and with them underachieving, I could definitely see them moving him. I want to talk about Verlander really quick, though, because if he goes back to Houston, I mean, they're right back in it again. And I mean, it's Houston is just that team that is just, they're always in the run right now because they still have that like core of, they still have Altuve, they still have Bregman, they still have, you know, like a good starting pitching
even mentioned
staff.
Big Papi. Yeah, they got Jordan.
Yeah.
Second coming of Big Papi, David
Yeah,
Ortiz.
yeah,
that
of course.
dude is a monster, and he's already proven in the big moments. Last year, Game 6 of the World Series, they're down. I think it was 2-1. Jordan flips a 3-run bomb. They never looked back. He is the guy now in Houston, and he's 24, 25 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we talk about the Rangers being one of the favorites, and they're literally only a half game up on the Astros in the West. And so it's just crazy to see that no matter what. And the crazy thing is I went to the game the other day, little drop here from the from the Fleetster, but I went to go to the A's versus the Astros the other day. And the A's straight beat them. Let's go, baby. Only
Shout out to the A's.
Only 30 and a half games back, baby. Let's go now.
There we go. Nice.
Let's go.
A's playing the Dodgers starting tomorrow night, so let's hope the A's can keep that going. We'd love to see that. But going back to Houston, they've got a good pitching staff already. Framber Valdez and Christian Javier are two studs. You throw Verlander to that mix, he's right back at home like he never left, and you watch out. That's another rotation you wouldn't want to see.
Yeah, and you know, I really did think for a little bit that the Giants were going to try and make a move for Verlander, but seeing as though they just moved for A.J. Pollock, I think their mind's in a different spot here.
A.J. Pollock, for those of you that don't know, is 35. No hate against 35-year-olds, but he's 35 years old. I want to say he's hitting $153 or $176 somewhere.
Definitely in the ones.
He's definitely in the ones. A.J. Pollock was a really good player 7 years ago. Since then, he hasn't done a whole lot to provide for his team, so the Giants are in a weird spot. The free agent market is it's starting to dry up. The big names are kind of already on the move. I really thought they might go for Jeimer Candelario, but he's now in Milwaukee. He's now in Chicago. And Mark Canha, he's moved on to Milwaukee, and just the well is running dry. So typical Farhan fashion. He promised a lot of goods, and so far he has not delivered.
Yeah, you know, let's tackle that really quick, because as a Giants fan, I think it's really interesting that you bring in this huge analytics guy, right, who has a reputation for making great moves, almost very like Moneyballish, getting a lot of value out of people who are not the biggest names and that are good on the analytics and rotating the squad and having a whole bunch of different movement from day to day. But what's your take on kind of what he's done so far in an overarching just general sense, but specifically this year and the way he approaches the trade deadlines? Because he's been here, 2-3 years now?
I would say it's his third year, yeah.
And it seems as though he hasn't done anything to really bring in anyone, except really the biggest decisions that he's made is not re-signing players.
Right. The Giants are a weird team because they have the method that the Giants use is they take guys that are kind of like reclamation projects. We'll take Darren Ruff, for example. He's 34, coming from the KBO, Korean Baseball Organization. They bring him over. He has a phenomenal year. In 2021, I think I don't want to make up numbers here, but I know he had a WAR of like above 3 or 4, and that's
give me the famous call. Give me the famous call.
Which
rounding third.
Ruff is on the move. Ruff is on the move. Shout out Dwayne Kuiper, best broadcaster in baseball, man.
There it is.
But Darren Ruff's a big name, and then they take Darren Ruff, they flip him in 2022 for J.D. Davis and 3 prospects. Darren Ruff goes to the Mets, does absolutely nothing, gets released within a year. Now J.D. Davis has got 14 bombs and leading the team in RBIs. Wilmer Flores is another guy like that. Mike Yastrzemski, they brought over from Baltimore in 19. He's had a great career with the Giants. So they bring these guys that are kind of like past their windows, and they reopen the windows, which is it's great and all. But Farhan, let's make some moves. Yeah. He did get Chris Bryant, so I won't say he's done nothing. And Chris Bryant, man, that's another story for another day. He's been in Colorado for 2 years now. I think he's played 45 games, and I think he's hit like 4 home runs. So that's tough. Chris Bryant's a good guy. But Farhan, I really, really hope, because he was the one that said that this year we're going to spend at the deadline, we're going to make moves. And so far, A.J. Pollock is not a move. That is not a move. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate kind of what happened with Carlos Correa right at the beginning where it falls through, and that was kind of going to be the headlining move that
what a comical offseason for the Giants, man. They arson Judge's whole thing, and
that was sad, honestly. And the thing is that a lot of people think that Aaron Judge played the Giants. He didn't play the Giants. You know who he played was the Yankees because they weren't offering him what he wanted, and all he did was just kind of like he made a Tinder profile. And the Yankees were like, never mind, dude, delete it. We got you. Like, we'll get you back. And so he did exactly what he had to do. But Giants definitely did dirty in the end from a public view. But Judge knew what he was doing. He was playing the Yankees, and he got his payday. But again, that Correa move was gonna be the thing that Farhan was going to hang his hat on, right? This is the big name. We're dealing out cash. This is us investing in the team. This is the big name player we're going to bring in. He's a culture guy. And then that falls through, and then it seems as though he just hasn't really recovered or pulled the trigger on any type of big move that really shows, I'm just throwing the chips in, and we'll see kind of where we go from here. But you also do have to respect that he values that farm system, that he is literally – like very responsible for building back up for the Giants because when
it was really bad when he got in.
Yeah, when he showed up, it was not what it is now.
Right.
And now you probably have one of the best farm systems in the league. Yeah. And so you got to respect that he's not willing to compromise that, especially given the fact that they've had a really good impact on the success of this year.
Right.
But, you want to see more than AJ Pollock and something Matthias or Matthias. Yeah.
And this is a division. The NL West, guys make moves. These guys make moves. Look at the Padres. They brought in Xander Bogaerts. They brought in Juan Soto. I know this wasn't recently, but they brought in Machado. These guys make moves. The Dodgers, every single year they make a splash. They already got Kike, Lance Lynn, Joe Kelly. The year before it was Scherzer. The year before that it was somebody else. So the Giants, they got to keep up because the team that they have now, they keep opening games with a 2-inning reliever, and then they give the ball to Sean Manaea or Ross Stripling. This is not a recipe for winning ball games. Right now we're getting lucky, plain and simple. We're winning a lot of games that we probably shouldn't be winning because this recipe is just not going to keep on cooking. So please, Farhan, if you're listening, which you won't be because this won't even air by tomorrow, but if you can somehow hear me with those sonar ears you got, please make a move. I'm begging you on behalf of the Giants fan base. Go get Luis Robert from the White Sox. Go get Tim Anderson, man.
Oh, man. Tim Anderson would be a great move for you guys.
He's had a god-awful year, so we can buy low.
Thing with baseball, it's very streaky.
Yeah.
And a change of scenery and a change of team mid-year or something and move into a place that maybe they are excited for, that can make all the difference in confidence and the way that they approach things. And getting that fresh look and fresh scenery could make all the difference, especially at the right time. Again, baseball, the season is so long, man, it's ridiculous, which that's a conversation for another day I want to get your thoughts on. But it's so long that the team that's the hottest right now, all of a sudden the Rangers and the Braves could fall off. I mean, it's very unlikely. But we got 56 games left. All of a sudden they could play well for the next 20 and then absolutely stink up the next 30 and not be even one of the top 5 hottest teams going into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's all about
And then you get somebody like the Giants or the Diamondbacks who all of a sudden catch fire at the right time. Mm-hmm. And then they head into the playoffs at the right time. Literally the hottest team playing great baseball. And then that's all you need is to be playing the best version of yourself at the right time in baseball.
And that's what happened last year with Philly. They snuck into the playoffs with like 88 wins. I was going to say the NFC Championship. The NLCS was, I want to say, the Padres, who were the 5th seed, and the Phillies, who were the 6th seed. And it's all about the hot hand. Look at all those Giants teams that won the World Series. None of those teams were the most talented team in the playoffs. They probably were all pretty much last. They won 3 World Series. You get hot, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. No, I was just talking. Talking with my cousin Michael about those years and how it made those championships. Of course, I'm not a Giants fan, but he's a diehard Giants fan along with you.
What's his name?
Michael.
Hey, Michael. Shout out to you, Michael.
Shout out to Michael.
Shout out to Big Mike.
So he was just talking about kind of how when you enter it and you're not the most talented team, but you just have you have so many collective contributions and you're managed well, and people show up and your top players perform and really put in some shifts for you, that it makes the championship even that much more sweeter. Just because you know you don't have the highest payroll, you don't have the most talented team, but everyone's clicking, everyone's connected, the clubhouse has great chemistry, and you're going out and people are literally battling for their brothers, and you're contributing at the right times. I mean, there were so many big plays in all three of those championship runs for the Giants that from people who most people wouldn't even remember the names. Yeah. I mean, Ishikawa.
I was going to say, if you're going to, 2014 is Ishikawa. 2012, you probably got Marco Scudero. Well, 2014 was Bumgarner, obviously, but Ishikawa. You got 2012. Marco Scudero hits 500 in the NLCS. 14 for 28 in the NLCS. Yeah. 2010, you got guys like our friend Aubrey Huff, Twitter's best friend Aubrey Huff. But just guys that it's insane. If you look at like an NBA roster, an NFL roster, and you go through these championship teams, you go, okay, Brady, okay, LeBron, okay, Steph. The MLB is so much different.
Yeah, like I said, you get these obscure names who
Brett Phillips,
yeah, exactly. It just these obscure names that are not household names at all. But all of a sudden, come October, it's time to really show out, and they just come up big when it matters, play their best baseball, and show up in the big moments. And it's one of the major sports that we have where a lot of people that are not the superstar names end up kind of being the storyline way more often than other sports.
Oh yeah, by far, it's not even close.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and again, just going back to like those Giants, when you have that type of roster where it's more contributions like across the widespread roster, it just makes it even that much sweeter because you remember those names, right? You remember all of a sudden these random contributions throughout the series and stuff like
Andres
that.
Torres, Angel Pagan, these random guys that you wouldn't have a second thought of otherwise,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I mean, hey, let's talk about this really quick since we're already on MLB. What's your predictions for who wins it? I mean, we can talk World Series matchup, who you think's going to make it there, but I want to get your thoughts on who you think actually wins this thing.
I think it'd be very difficult to bet against Atlanta right now. I don't even think they need to make a trade. I mean, they've got so many guys. That are playing well, and it's been like that for years. I mean, it's not like there's some new coming team, a hot team. They've been around. They won the World Series a couple years ago. They've been there. They were in the NLCS a couple times. Matt Olson playing out of his mind. Ronald Acuna is going to win the NL MVP. Ozzie Albies is a superstar. Austin Riley at third base, monster. Sean Murphy, former A, behind the plate. Yeah. Max Fried, Spencer Strider. They've got every position, the bullpen. They'll probably win the World Series. If it's not them, Houston's a team I always will bet on because they seem to always be in the mix.
They got big-time players, too. That's the thing. Right. It's like, I know we were just talking about these obscure players who show up, but when you have players and superstars that just always show up in the big moments, you can never be counted out, like you said. I mean, you get Altuve, you get Yordan, right? These guys are proven to show up when it matters most, and so they're definitely always a threat for sure.
I know it's a boring prediction because we've seen it before, but I'd probably have Atlanta beating Houston in 7 or 6. If you want to have a fun World Series, give me Texas and Cincinnati, man. That'd be fun.
Okay.
Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, obviously I want to say the Giants, but non-biased. Give me a little Ellie De La Cruz in the World Series in his first year with all those guys. Jonathan in India at second base, Yeah,
dude. Ellie De La Cruz, man, he's doing a lot for the MLB, and not just from like just social media and like the highlights and like the different type of passion, which I think eventually, and this is just kind of a different conversation, but we might as well go into it because I feel like what MLB needs is more expression.
Yeah, they do.
They are so entrenched in their roots of it's a gentleman's game. You show respect. You don't bat flip. You don't, all this different, all these unwritten rules that you don't do. You don't swing on 3-0.
Yeah.
It's like so stupid.
Tatis hit a grand slam a couple years ago on a 3-0 pitch in like a 10-run game, and everybody
who was the manager? He's like
He was a 1 year. Jace Tingler was the manager of the Padres at the time, and he even outed Fernando about it. He was like, our guys got to be better. And it's like, dude, you pay me to hit the ball. I'm sorry, you know. I didn't know there was a mercy rule.
Yeah.
And then after that, the pitcher's going to beam someone, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, going back to like the unwritten rules of, oh, you swing on 3-0, or if you do something now, I'm gonna peg you with this freaking fastball to the head. And it's like, what is the point of this? I just don't understand what the unwritten rules of baseball brings to the final product and the watchability of it as a fan. It does nothing, right? Everybody just kind of accepts it because it's what's been done for forever, right? But I feel like they're starting to be this transition where MLB is also accepting the fact that they need clicks, they need views, they need the younger generation to be locked in and be really invested in it. And you get somebody like Ellie De La Cruz, who is very expressive. He steals a base if he gets an extra base hit.
Stole third base and home on the same damn play.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you make exciting plays like that, but not only that, but having that marketability and having those emotional and like showing out basically when you make a play versus just kind of sliding in and, you know, being cordial and very composed and, oh, yeah, you celebrate when you get to the dugout, but if you hit a shot, all of a sudden it's just, you know, place the bat down as kindly as you can. I'm sorry, I just hit a bomb off of you. I'm going to trot around the bases now. But, no, I want people talking shit. I want people flipping the bat and yelling and flexing. Like, that's what we want to see is that, like, emotion. And for me, I think they're finally starting to realize, and when I say they, I just mean the MLB as a league is starting to take this different approach to social media and the way that they market their game. It's so much more geared towards the youth now. I think they're finally catching on to it because for the longest, it was like, what are they doing? They're not even embracing any of like the new era type of stuff and really marketing them to get the youth to invest in it. And so I think that's something that we're going to see start changing a lot more.
And MLB's in good hands too. Ellie De La Cruz, obviously, he's got Cincinnati locked down. I mean, we forget how young Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is because he seems like he's been in the league for like 7 years, but he's only in his 4th year. I think he's 24, 25 at the most. Bo Bichette, his teammate's a stud. In Pittsburgh, O'Neal Cruz, who's been injured for a lot of the years, another 6'7" demon at shortstop. So, yeah, baseball's in good hands, and I'm happy to see the phasing out of the unwritten rules. We did just get a glimpse of it over the weekend. Miles Michaelis, who's a pitcher for the Cardinals, I think it was Ian Happ, Cubs Cardinals. I could be wrong on that, but somebody hit his catcher on a backswing. Contreras.
Yeah.
And Miles Michaelis the next inning threw at somebody, but the first pitch he missed him. He threw it like over him or behind him.
He doubled down.
You can't double down, man. You cannot double down.
Yeah.
And if you want to double down, you know what? You go get in the batter's box, bro. You're not the one taking 98 to the shoulder blade. So pitchers always act tough. They always act crazy. You go get in the box. And then not only that, but you're endangering your teammates now because you think they're not going to retaliate. They probably are. So get rid of the unwritten rules. Get rid of the pride. Let baseball be fun. And protect your teammates because when you beam someone at 98, you're just setting up the guys behind you for failure.
Yeah. And just every other major sport, everything that gets clicks, everything that gets views, everything that's exciting, it's all the personality shining through. It's the emotion. It's the raw emotion, the reactions of making a big play, the heated moments of the sport. Like being able to market people's emotional responses and their personality is what makes the game more fun and more watchable.
Look at any NBA commercial.
NBA,
Steph
NFL.
going crazy. Bron doing his dance.
Exactly.
The Eagles get a pick 6. They're doing stomp the yard.
Exactly.
And then the NFL markets that in a commercial, and baseball needs the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the thing with the NFL is that even they kind of draw the line. Even they draw the line a little bit too shallow, in my opinion. They're throwing flags for excessive celebration, and if you throw the ball or kick the ball or something like that, it's like a penalty. Get rid of that. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? Let the guys celebrate a touchdown. They just put points up on the board. It's a huge part of the game. Let them celebrate. But I do agree because when they do it and they don't throw a flag, they're marketing it a ton. And you know what I mean? So, but you look at any other sport, soccer, football, basketball, they're always a big emotional response and personalities that shine through. And that's really what garners kind of the viewership and the ratings. And that's what makes the sport grow. That's what makes kids and young adults want to play this and invest time in it.
Right. So, you think kids are watching? I'm just going to use him as an example because I know he plays the game the right way. But the kids aren't imitating Pete Alonso when they hit a dinger. They're imitating Acuna. They're imitating Ellie De La Cruz, Vlad Guerrero. throwback to Jose Batista. They're
Right.
imitating those guys, and you know. So let's progress the game forward. Let's make it more fun. I do want to say that I've been very against the pitch clock, but I'm starting to turn a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it does take away from the actual game experience itself. When you're at a baseball game, it does go by a little faster. But majority of the time we're watching on TV anyways, it does eliminate those 45 seconds in between the pitch. Because sometimes the guy gets set.
Dreadful.
This guy gets set, steps off the mound, but then now the batter's ticked off, so he skips in the box, and then he calls timeout to spit and put his gloves back on. The game's got a lot more flow to it now. It's more like to the point. You know, and it's I'm turning the tide a little bit. I can't lie.
Oh, I loved it. I didn't know how it was going to be implemented, but I loved it because I thought that it now created this battle that was within these parameters. Now it's like there's not as many mind games. It's like I'm attacking you, you're attacking me, and let's get at it. There was less room for so many mind games and so much time that's going in between. Like you said, there would be times where all of a sudden he steps off or he doesn't like the call or anything like that, and he steps off, and now the batters, now he's gonna redo both of his gloves, fix his helmet, brush his hair back, look at his bat for another 10 seconds, and it drags on, right, to the point where if you're at the game or if you're watching the game, you're having a separate conversation in between pitches. You could have a full exchange about something that's happening or whatever you want to talk about before the next pitch even comes. And now it's like you can barely even maybe get a sentence or two in before the next pitch is coming. And I think for that, it brings a flow and it brings an established like battle.
Right.
There's no other factors that can really affect the flow of it other than just the fact that they're going at it. You have this time frame that you have to get this pitch off. And I think it makes it more entertaining. And baseball, the games were already a little bit too long. I think everyone can admit that. And so shrinking it down, I think it maybe even knocks just like maybe 30 to 45 minutes off.
Yeah, I want to say last year the average game was about 3 hours and 8 minutes, and now they're like 2:34 somewhere.
Yeah,
there.
so it's about 30 minutes that they shave off, and that makes a big difference though, like collectively over. And like I said, you've been to multiple games this year, and same for me. It feels faster. Like I remember going to a lot of games and sitting there and like, damn, it's only the freaking fourth inning.
Right.
I'm like, damn, it's dark now. I've been here an hour and a half. It's only halfway through the game. And now it's like an hour and a half in, you're at like the bottom of the sixth.
Yeah, it's
and
quick.
now you're like, damn, this game just flew by, especially if nobody's getting on base and it's a good pitching battle. It's like that game will be really, really quick.
I went to opening day. It was 3-1 Royals beat the Giants. And I think the only offense came on home runs. There was a solo shot by Salvi Perez. I think Wilmer might have went deep. And then there was like a 2-run shot early in the game. That's it. And there was probably 4 hits on each side. And that game was 2 hours and 8 minutes long.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's insane.
When there's very limited offense, that game will go by so quick, man.
Right.
It's literally, it feels very fast. Like I was just at the Giants game and we like finally sit down and we're talking or whatever, and it's like bottom of the 7th.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, and it was like a 2-1 game at that point. So there wasn't a lot of offense. And I think Boston had to hit a home run, and that's why they had gotten on board or whatever. So it just goes by really quick. But if you're actually going to sit down and watch the game, it makes it more watchable though. If you're actually locked into the game, just because it has a tempo, it has a speed, it has a sort of like rhythm to the game versus like there's so many factors that they could have done before to affect the rhythm, which I think that they've kind of made it more of a controlled environment now. And I think it's better for the sport.
And shout out to the umpires because I feel like the umpires have adjusted very, very well to this pitch clock.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I kind of wondered how they would adapt to it, but a lot of guys have really – we don't give umpires a lot of love. We give them a lot of hate. But the umpires deserve love. So a little shout out to all the umpires out there not named Angel Hernandez. We still don't like you very much. You got to get better. He just finished a rehab assignment, actually. He was umpiring in the minor leagues for a little bit on a rehab assignment. He just got called up today. First call, he blew it. They had to review it. And he called a runner safe at second on a throw down to second on a stolen base. They overturned it. So Angel's back in full form.
Typical Angel fashion.
In full form.
Dude, I got to say, though, I respect the MLB for at least putting him on assignment to get better. Yeah. I mean, there's got to be some sort of repercussion for not getting calls right. And especially now with, like, the challenge system, right? You got to waste a challenge on a call that should have been made in its it's clear. You know, it's not something like it's a bang call. All of a sudden, it's worth a review because it was really close. No, it's like clear cut. You should have made that call. Every other umpire would have made that call. You just can't make mistakes like that. And even going to like the NBA, right? You get play, and the thing with like NFL, I think, is the one that's like most like there's no reprimanding basically at all. Yeah. Because you have all these referees on the field that are making calls. We don't know their names. We don't know who they are. And their main job is not even being a sideline like referee. They have other jobs besides it. So it's crazy to see like the holding call that just happened in this last Super Bowl. It's like, does anybody know who threw that flag? Right. No. Like, there's no repercussions for that. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody argues, and yeah, it was probably a hold according to the rule book, but it probably was happening about 20 other plays in that game.
It's so subjective. It's crazy.
And again, you get the main referee who's making the calls, right? But most of the time, the head umpire of the NFL game is not the one throwing the flag. Right. Literally, so you get guys like Tony Correnti, Clete Blakeman, and all these different guys who catch all the flack and heat for it, but it's like, really, it's like the construction worker who's doing it in his free time who just threw the holding call. Right. And it's like, it's crazy. And then you start even thinking about the NBA, you start to see, like, NBA is very quiet about their repercussions. Yeah. Because, no, you don't see them, NBA, we've suspended this referee for a few games or whatever. All of a sudden, you just see them on less games. Mm-hmm. They're just very under the cover and very behind closed doors about it, like, now he's not a playoff referee now. Right. Now he's not an NBA Finals referee. And so they do a good job of, like, doing it behind closed doors.
They still make sure that Scott Foster's in that Game 6, Game 7.
Scott Foster is literally the Tim Donaghy of the NBA right now. Like, and I'm not saying that there's legitimate proof to show that he's throwing games, but when he referees a game, it's a different game than when anybody else referees it. And he is going to be front and center. He's going to make the controversial calls, and he's always going to affect the game somehow.
Yeah, he is. Every single time.
Really quick, since we're talking about NBA, I wanted to, did you see this Dr. J? Did you see his top 10 players of all time? Let me read this for you.
West on the top?
Let me read this list for you. You know who Dr. J is, right?
Oh, of course.
So Dr. J, they ask him, and this is the...
Is this in order that I could see you on the screen?
No. It's no order. Okay. But he did a disclaimer. Anybody that's still playing is not in his top 10 because he says, oh, you got to let them finish their career first, which to me, I think has no bearing on it because if they've already had a top 10 and you're doing no order, there's no reason why they shouldn't be in there if they deserve to. But so anyways, let's go down the list. Dr. J goes, no order, right? Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Karl Malone, and Tiny Archibald.
Wow. That's quite a list.
It's a horrendous list is what it is.
That's why I got this expression on my face.
It's an absolutely horrendous list.
I'm not seeing any Shaquille O'Neal. I'm not seeing any Tim Duncan. I'm not seeing any Kobe Bryant.
Exactly. And look, Dr. J, you were a great player. Don't get me wrong. But that is a horrendous list. And literally, it's like only people that he played against.
I was about to say, this is a list of my friends, pretty much.
This is about the biggest old head list that you could find. It goes back to that whole stigma that the old-time players basically hate on the new generation because they think it's soft and they don't get fouled as much and technicals are so quick now and all this different. He totally aligns with that sentiment. Because this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry, Tiny Archibald is not a top 10 player.
Insane.
Karl Malone is not a top 10 player. Elgin Baylor is not a top 10 player. I know Jerry West is the logo. He is not a top 10 player.
I'm sorry. I know Bill Russell won 11 championships or whatever it was, but
even he is like,
is he a top 10? I don't know.
There's literally like a run of 4 people that is legit in my opinion. Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those ones are very respectable. Even Magic Johnson is where Magic, it's like I don't even know if Magic's top 10 in my opinion. But you get guys like Jerry West, and like I said, no disrespect to the logo, but he's not a top 10 player. And when he was playing, give me a break. So you get Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor. You get Magic Johnson, who I don't think is in the top 10. Karl Malone, Tiny Archibald. 6 of his top 10 are not even what I would think is overwhelming majority of people would not agree that those are top 10 players. It's an insane list.
I mean, I'd even have like Dirk Nowitzki over some of those guys.
I mean, it's just one of those things where it's totally biased.
Yeah,
and what's the argument for not including people who are still playing? All they can do is get better.
Right.
If they already deserve to be in the top 10, why not put them there?
Right.
It just makes no sense to me. And like you said, you leave out guys like LeBron, Kobe, Shaq, Tim Duncan, all these different guys who have finished. Some of them have finished their career. I mean, Tim Duncan, I would put Tim Duncan over most of those 6 that I said didn't deserve to be there.
Right.
It's just crazy to hear something like that. And you're like, it's so biased, and it totally aligns with this whole old head versus old school versus new school type of thing. And it's just wild to hear, man. And one of these days I would like to we'll have to do it with all 3 of us, but we'll do like a top 5 in each position or a top 10 across the whole league, and we'll do kind of like football, baseball, basketball type of thing, and that would be a lot of fun just to kind of get different takes and figure out some stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm just like shocked at that.
That's a baffling list.
Yeah.
That is a baffling list.
Really quick, I want to touch on this because I don't know if you've watched it, but have you watched the Steph documentary that came out?
I have not. I've watched this Hot Ones battle. I haven't seen the documentary.
Let's talk about the Hot Ones since you've watched that. First of all,
I'm proud of Steph, man. That last dab was that was one of the biggest. I'm a Hot Ones enthusiast, and that was one of the biggest last dabs I've probably ever seen.
I would agree with you, and I don't think he really meant to do it, but I'll tell you what, he rolled with the punches because
with it.
It was a vigorous shakedown that he did onto it, and man, that was a hefty dab.
That was a shake.
Oh yeah, for sure, and he took it like a champ too. And one thing that I noticed, didn't drink a single thing the whole episode.
Nothing.
My goat.
That's wild.
My goat.
Only a select few have said that or have done that.
Yeah.
That's a very small portion of the.
Now he's a monster for that. Okay, but this is what I want to touch on because I thought it was Sean Evans is I think right now best interviewer in existence.
He's great.
I think he does his preparation work, and the way he asks his question is so insightful. It's so. It's such a good way of approaching it, too. Like, the way he sets up the questions is so well done. It makes them have a reaction to the way he's asked the question.
Like, wow, damn, you really just asked me that.
I mean, how many times has he been said, like, oh, that's a great question. How do you know that? Wow, I've never been asked that before. I think it's really like that's the trademark one. Like, I've never been asked this before. Yeah. But he is just one of the best, man. And he brings it every episode. There's not anything that he just fills in and it's just a filler episode that he kind of throws the towel in on. No, he is there every episode firing some hard-hitting questions, some really good stuff. You feel like you learn more about the person at the end of the episode.
Right.
With that being said, I thought Steph's interview was slightly boring, though.
It was a little boring. I'm not going to lie. I knew you're a Steph lover, so I wasn't going to say that. But
no, exactly. I mean, for me, I'm literally the biggest Steph stan you probably know.
Right.
And like I said, Sean brought the heat, and he was great. But Steph was just kind of like, he was just chilling.
A little vanilla.
Yeah. It was just a little bit like, oh, I'm here for it. Like, I think he was more so focused because he even mentioned, I have a bet with my family.
Right.
I think he was so locked in on...
alive.
He was trying to stay alive and not drink anything and just kind of get through the wings of death.
Right.
That he kind of was like, the questions were good, but he kind of just wasn't really deep diving into anything.
Surface level answers from the
Yeah. I mean, besides like the one where he was breaking down the shooting form and stuff like that, he kind of got into the weeds of some of it. But overall, in terms of the rankings of Hot Ones episodes, which would be awesome to break down and talk about. That would be great to do.
Jeff Goldblum at the top. I'll tell you that right now.
Goldblum's one of my favorite interviews.
Solid.
He is so entertaining to listen to. I think I've listened to a podcast with him before, and he's just somebody you could listen to talk, right? He's just somebody who's very easy to listen to, and he just seems like a cool guy. Like, I'd want to be Goldblum's friend.
Right. He mentioned he met Quavo at, I want to say it was St. Laurent in Beverly Hills. And he goes, oh, yeah, I met that young Quavo. And we met each other, and we just soaked each other's essence in. I'm like, that's a crazy way to describe meeting someone. Soaking in each other's essence. Yeah. That is great. And shout outs to Sean Evans, because on that very episode, he said, when I get a bag, and he taught what a bag means to Jeff Goldblum. He said, when I get a bag, I'm going to get some veneers. He got the veneers. That man's got some nice teeth on him.
Who?
Sean Evans.
Oh, Sean Evans.
He was like, when I get a bag, I'm going to get some veneers. And Goldblum says, get a bag. What does that mean? And he let him know. He what it meant. Shout out to Sean Evans, because the man's got a nice pair. He's got a nice set of teeth on him now.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Evans, he's a beast all around. Shout out Sean Evans. We are Sean Evans fans here, Hot Ones fans since day one. I've been watching Hot Ones since literally the first season. Right. And the fact, I think they're even close to like season 20 now. Right? I think they're on like either season 19 or 20 now. I think they're
11 because I've been gifted and I bought some of the season packs. And I think the most recent one that I got was season 21.
Okay, yeah. Then they're probably over 20 now. I mean, it's insane. And the amount of people that they've had is literally like an A-list celebrity party, man.
I always describe this show to people that haven't watched it. I'm like, it's not like your average reality show or talk show where they're going to get B-list celebrities, somebody from like Ned's Declassified, School Survival Guide, and somebody from American Idol 06. Yeah. It's like Will Ferrell. Yeah. It's Margot Robbie. It's Steph. It's KD. It's Jimmy Butler. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think I've seen any NFL players on there, though, which is a little bit surprising because, you know, you got a lot of tough guys in the NFL.
Yeah. You know what? I'm sure that there is. We just not recalling right now because I think they've touched on a lot of sports. Yeah. But they definitely have hit the basketball circle. Yeah. Like I think Blake Griffin was on it.
Yeah, Blake was there.
Yeah. No, but they've done a really good job like tapping into different industries as well. Right. And I'm just kind of thinking, I wonder if they've ever thought about doing like a Hot Ones like party or Hot Ones get together reunion of all the people who have been on it. That would be really cool if they were able to put something on and everybody comes down and they have some of the sauces and have some wings or whatever, and everybody just kind of bonds over the fact that they had this experience.
Do you know really how cool. Hot Ones started, by the way, real quick?
No, I don't.
So Sean Evans worked as a writer and like a content creator for Complex, and he would go to these different things for Complex, like conventions or of what, you know, whatever sort. And he would literally grab a celebrity. A lot of them are rappers. A lot of like, I think he might be from Atlanta, so a lot of smaller Atlanta-based rappers. And he would grab them and be like, "Hey, real quick, do you want to do a quick interview?" And it's a fun interview. And they would literally like sneak them off for like 10 minutes and film a quick Hot Ones episode. He's like, the first few episodes are literally these like sneak attack interviews with these like local rapper and celebrities. Yeah. So, hey, shout out to Sean Evans for taking the risk.
Oh, yeah.
It has paid off.
Yeah, I mean, most of these like YouTube series and stuff like this, I mean, it starts at the bottom, man. Yeah. They're just scratching and clawing for anything. So it's nice to always see kind of where they've come from and now what they do. I mean, the editing on the episode and just the full production is just awesome. It's an experience every time you sit down and watch a Hot Ones. It really is because, like I said, you walk away feeling like you know them better. And it's more of a like informal, informative interview, right? Like it's not like they're very like, you know, professional and giving you just short answers and to the point it's almost scripted, right? Because his answers you almost can't prepare for. So and then you combine the fact that you have this hot sauce and they're dealing with the spice of it, and they almost get like an out of body experience where they start saying and acting more natural, like this is their true self.
Right.
So you kind of get a little bit of a view into kind of their true personality and who they are because they're like in pain.
Yeah,
they're struggling.
The real version, you know?
Yeah, like their fight or flight kicks in and now they're more open. Sometimes they're even more open about stories now because they're suffering and that's the first thing that's coming to their mind. And, oh, my tongue's on fire, I'm burning up. But yeah, this one memory I had, you know? So it's cool because they've kind of, there's a little bit of a science behind it, right? It's like they open up the anecdotal type of stuff that they get from these guests that come on because they're on fire and they're struggling throughout like this challenge. So shout out to Hot Ones. It's been awesome, like watching it and seeing it grow. And hopefully we have a similar type of path. We keep doing this.
I hope so.
You guys keep watching and we'll keep doing our thing here. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just awesome to see that.
Should we give this episode a proper Hot Ones send-off?
We should.
Well, from here at Backyard Dynasty, Fleet,
this camera, this camera, and this camera.
Tell the people what you got going on in your life.
Well, shout out to Scanny for joining us tonight. Another solid episode. I think next week we'll probably film another episode of Backyard Dynasty coming. I think
post-trade deadline. So we'll have some more MLB moves to talk about. And we'll be 1 week closer to football.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully no more injuries. But yeah, keep tuning in. I think pretty soon, once we get a couple more episodes filmed, by the time you guys see this, they'll already be up. But we'll be announcing kind of the backlog of these episodes we have posted. So keep viewing, keep watching, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll be back again soon.
We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week, y'all.
Peace out.
Backyard Dynasty.